Our reaction to the
Max Verstappen and George Russell drama and free practice.
We are live to you directly from Abu Dhabi. Yes, we just want to apologise, first and foremost, for being a little bit late with this one. We were quite literally in the middle of the desert.
we literally tried to record in the desert. We were ready to go, and then some rave music started, so we couldn't record, I'm afraid. But we did our best. But here we are. We're here.
Now, we've kind of combined this podcast into two. One, because we need to react to the Verstappen and Russell drama, but also, of course, what's gone on in Friday practice. So let's get into the drama then, shall we? And I've got it right here to kind of run you through exactly play by play. So it's kicked off, fair to say. And if you've been living under a rock, I'm going to summarise it for you. So Verstappen ranted about Russell in Qatar, saying, "I've never seen someone trying to screw someone over that hard." In Abu Dhabi, Thursday, Russell hits back at Verstappen in an interview saying, "I find it all quite ironic, considering Saturday he said he's going to purposely go out of his way to crash into me and, quote, put me on my effing head in the wall. People have been bullied by Max for years now, and you can't question his driving abilities, but he cannot deal with adversity whenever anything has gone against him." But it doesn't end there, does it? Russell and Toto Wolff then had a press conference and went even further, saying, "I think he has been enabled because nobody has stood up to him. Lewis stood up to him in 2021 and Lewis lost that championship unfairly. Could you imagine the roles being reversed and Max losing that championship and the manner in which Lewis lost that championship? Michael Massey would be fearing for his life." Verstappen then told Dutch media, "He's a backstabber. It doesn't matter to me. You don't have to talk too much about people like that. They are just losers. We had the last laugh because in the end we won that race. They may have started on pole thanks to their nitpicking at the stewards, but 300 metres later, they were behind us again. I can't do anything about that either." Of all the rivalries, of all the things to kick off, Russell versus Verstappen was not on my bingo card for this
really
year
wasn't.
over a one-place grid penalty.
The thing that surprised me most was how in George Russell's gone on it. Because not only is it maybe a bit surprising from someone like George Russell to go this kind of ham with it, but also, of course, he's the director, the guy of the GPDA. So he's kind of the voice of the drivers.
Of course, we start the podcast and now there's fireworks going on outside. I think both drivers have points, to be honest with you. Max on one side feels very hard done by the whole stewards incident, and I'm completely with him. And Max is almost trying to find a reason as to why this has happened, and he's kind of landed it on George, being like, well, you and your FIA mates, that's kind of the only logical solution he can come up with, because it was just the most ridiculous penalty. Let's go to a question from P1 Patreon member Lozzie Dawn. Do you think Verstappen's reaction in the media at Qatar was warranted? And has George perhaps taken it a step further than just defending himself at Abu Dhabi? Verstappen's reaction was absolutely warranted in the sense of being very outspoken about how poor the decision was by the FIA. Has it all kind of blown out of proportion? Yes, I think so as well. Maybe it's the end of the season. It's an incredibly long season for the drivers, more so the teams, but the drivers, they will get mental fatigue and whatnot. And yeah, maybe it is just underlying frustrations at the FIA and it's kind of boiling out now that they're scrapping against each other. It's, I honestly am a little bit dumbfounded as to how this has all sort of got to the way it has. What is going on outside? Like, honestly.
What is actually going on?
Holy cow, it's right there.
Why are they doing fireworks now?
I don't know, it's at the water park.
Please tell me that's finished.
That might have been the last firework.
I really hope so.
I mean, that sounded like a crescendo to me.
I mean, okay. I think that you're right in the fact that I can't believe it's escalated this much. I think the fact that Verstappen's initial comments weren't, in my opinion, that bad. It was a little bit of like trash talking, but it wasn't, he's absolutely attacked. It was kind of like, oh, that's a bit spicy, but I don't think it's anything more crazy than we've heard other drivers in the past talk about each other. So the fact that George has gone that in on the situation is obviously felt very strongly about it. In my opinion, personally, this is part of sport, is kind of nitpicking at each other. And I don't want things to get like crazy bitter and that's not what I'm saying and that's what I want sport to be. But equally, you can't expect these drivers who are elite sportsmen trying to get an advantage off people, trying to kind of do all this stuff. You can't expect them to be, holding hands in the paddock with their rivals. That's not how any sport works, and especially not, Formula One. I remember, in the past, there's all sorts of drivers, battling in the media. It's always been part of the sport that you kind of can get in your driver's head, mental games, things like that as well. Like that's part of the sport.
It certainly is. It builds the rivalries, and I agree with you in the sense of we don't want it to become toxic in the sense of not just the drivers going at each other's throats, but also the fans and all that sort of stuff. We do want lively rivalries because that's what makes sport interesting. You want to see those two go wheel to wheel now, and that's something that...
The drama is absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I mean, it's the greatest Thursday kind of media day in the history of Formula One in terms of drama.
For journalists,
it's quite something.
Let's go to the question P1 Patreon member Quinty has asked. Who do you think is lying or exaggerating, Verstappen or Russell? For me, as much as it might be believable, perhaps, what Max has been saying about putting him on his effing head and how you might think Max might say that, we haven't heard it, we haven't seen it, we haven't seen the way in which it was delivered. So it's a very much a he said, she said scenario here where it could have been terrible and Max really being angry, or it could have been Max saying it in a way that we know Max can deliver certain lines to George, who didn't take it very well. So it's not a case of lying and exaggerating. We never usually see drivers come into the media like this, and there's a reason for it, because then people, fans of the sport, are then left to their own judgment as to what's gone on here. We don't have the facts.
Maybe it's unfair, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, but saying something is a lot different to doing something. If Verstappen had then crashed into George at the start and put him in the wall, then there's something to be said about it. Mm-hmm. But it's just trash talk. I remember David Coulthard saying about Felipe Massa years and years ago, if he doesn't agree with me, I'm going to punch the living beep out of him. Should David Coulthard be penalised for that? No, he's just angry in the moment and saying something. If he did do that, then there's grounds to be had. But Max just drove past him in the race, and there wasn't anything to be had there. So I don't think you can sort of penalise people for trash talking and kind of saying things like that personally.
Indeed, I agree. P1 Patreon member Snowborn. With everything that's been said, is this a good argument for transcripts of the meetings and stewards' investigations? No, I think it's an absolute can of worms if transcripts from stewards' investigations comes out just because this one thing has been said in the room that there was swearing and this other stuff. And then I was reading that Crofty had said that there was no swearing in the steward's room. And then I'm like, wait, how does he know? Is he there?
There's so many things flying around on F1 Twitter that's like, when they had their driver's dinner, Max saved a seat for George. And it's all like, maybe he did, but we don't know. And I think with this, these are like private sessions where a driver should be able to defend themselves, whether Max likes it or not. If George defends himself incredibly, extremely, they should be allowed to do that in a private environment, and it's up to the stewards to decide. And it shouldn't be a thing turned into our entertainment where it's like an episode of Question Time or something where they're going at it or whatever.
Should we talk about practice? Because
go on then.
Actually here
let's talk about Shogun
well.
News lockup.
Well, no, let's talk about the fact that Charles Leclerc has a 10-place grid penalty, maybe. His battery had to be replaced, and if you remember, they had to replace that first battery in Bahrain, the first round of the season. So it's done all right, up until this point. But of course, in the last round of the season, when I've put every egg into Charles Leclerc and Ferrari's basket, 10, not even 5. Why has a battery got to be 10?
It's gutting for him because it was lined up nicely that you had this battle with Ferrari and McLaren. There was still very much a chance. It's obviously going to be incredibly difficult now with Charles starting way back. Even if he gets pole, he's P11. So maybe it's a bit easier to overtake now at Abu Dhabi, and this year it's still a challenging track though to pass.
Question from P1 Patreon member Lumixion. How cool was it to see the Leclerc brothers in action together? It was awesome to see both the Leclerc, as much as there wasn't actually a huge amount of running with both of them there, because Charles had his problems. We did actually think at one point maybe Charles not even going to get out there, but they did, and it was nice, and I think Arthur did a great job. You're not expected, and I'm sure he was not expected to go out there and blaze the lap times in, because it's Ferrari literally trying to challenge for the Constructors' Championship. It's probably a circulate, don't crash the car, have a great time. And I think he did a good job. You know, some people were saying, "Oh, does he even deserve it? It's nepotism at its finest, this, that, and the other."
Welcome to F1.
Yeah, I
by the
know,
way.
literally. And some of them were Carlos Sainz fans saying it, and I'm like, huh? I mean, literally.
And also, it's important to remember that this probably wasn't planned as well because of Ollie Behrman and how he couldn't tick off the FP1 scheduled running as their reserve because he's already done races, so it wouldn't count, right? As their rookie driver.
Yeah, it's not like they did it for banter. They did it because they have to tick it off at the end of the season. And that's why they had so many different rookies out there. Speaking of the rookies, so you had Hirakawa for McLaren, Hadjar for Red Bull, who had that spin right at the start, and I bet Christian Horner was like, "Oh, okay, all right." Still not Yuki Tsunoda though. Iwasa was out there in the RB, of course. Leclerc, Arthur was in the Ferrari, then Jack Doohan, but he's now a fully fledged racing driver for this weekend, and of course next year. And then Luke Browning in the Williams. The one that obviously stands out is Hirakawa was the fastest of those rookies. It was quite close between them though, but. It was cool to see some new names out there.
Yeah, and the fact that they're like mixed into the pack shows that, they're not, you go back to the 90s or whatever and you put a lot of these kind of new drivers in, they'd probably be like seconds and seconds off the pace. But these young drivers, we've seen it so many times this year, are good and able to jump in the car and do well.
Let's go to free practice 2 then. And first question, Craig Tilley 95. Are McLaren looking quicker than expected? It's not a surprise. With Nico Hülkenberg chilling in P3, I'm taking this slightly with a pinch of salt, even FP2, which is usually quite a representative session compared to P1 at least. But no, I think McLaren, of course, they've been quick all year. They've not executed well at every single weekend, but they have had a decent looking car. And are we surprised? No, not really. It's a hot, humid track, which we expected them to be very quick in Qatar, and they were. So it's like for like, really.
It's not a huge surprise, but of course, it's only practice. So
it's only practice. Tomorrow, qualifying. Very much looking forward to that. Question, P1 Patreon member Sam. How good are Haas? Sam, it seems like by this question you are a Haas fan, or at least a Hülkenberg fan. If they are third place, then you're going to have a great weekend. But I really don't think that's quite how the pace is looking out there. So, but look, Haas have, again, they've been the best of the rest for quite some time this year.
They have. I wouldn't be surprised if they got points. Does look like it's been a good car this year. In the hands of even K-Mag that had that horrible start to the year, it has to be said, has been doing a good job. So definitely points up for grabs.
Gring asks, should Williams just call it and start their break a week early? Yes, I said this at the end of last weekend. I was like, look, just pack it up. Have a practice session. Look forward to next year. Don't crash the car. Lovely. And then Colapinto ran wide, maybe picked up a little bit of floor damage. Albon was then crawling around. I was like, oh no. This is honestly just lap 1, into the pits. Have an ice cream. Thank you very much.
Jokes aside about should they just pack up and go, Williams and everyone there and working there, they're racers, they're a legendary team that want to go racing. And even if it's a bit of a stinker, like the mechanics and everyone can hold their heads up very high of what they've done this year. And
see it
in very difficult circumstances, I can't begin to imagine how difficult it is for the mechanics anyway, with how many races you have now, never mind when you're repairing a car almost feeling like every single weekend, or sometimes both cars. So I hope they have a good end to the year.
And finally, the big question, but first, before we go into that, congratulations to Max Verstappen and Kelly Piquet for announcing a child on the way. I thoroughly enjoyed Max responding in a little video saying that he's already a bonus dad, so it's not like it's just the first time, which is really cute. The question from DJ Ferrari F1, is Max Verstappen retiring? I've seen so many people convinced Max is retiring in a few days' time. That is an absolute load of rubbish. Now, I do completely respect that he wants to be there for his new baby when it comes, and he will be, and he will do everything he possibly can to be a great dad. I'm very convinced of that. But he is not retiring going into next year. Maybe in a couple of years, 2-3 years, perhaps. You know, he's said that he wants to see his family grow up, and that's one of the most special things for him to do, and that's what he's looking forward to. But there is no way he is retiring at the end of this year. I cannot see it. Not even 1% of me thinks that this is going to happen.
It's not happening. Not this year. I can see it almost. It's one of those things that cements to me more that he's going to retire a lot earlier than Hamilton, way earlier than Hamilton and Alonso. And it could even be maybe as early as 2026 now, but not next year.
Okay, that's it. We're done. We've done our little wrap up. Well, it's not little at all. I think that we've been talking for a very long time. Tommy, what are your final thoughts, please?
Final thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this one because we battled through drum and bass, fireworks, and apparently me losing my voice now as well.
Oh, you're getting emotional. We finally got there in the end.
I'm just emotional that we've made it.
Yeah, we've finally done it. Now we're going to find out that the internet is 1 megabyte per second.
Or I didn't press record.
If you didn't press record, I was honestly going to, I was going to put you on your head, mate. I'm not going to lie. So, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow for the qualifying roundup, whenever that will be. Trust me, we're trying to get the content out as quickly as possible, but we're also trying to be Formula One fans very giddy about being here in Abu Dhabi to watch the final race of the year. So we'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.
Bye.